You have talked about Dave Ramsey numerous times on these podcasts. Now, you hear the goods and the bads, and some people think he's awesome, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Some people don't, but is the Dave Ramsey method outdated for buying a home now?
Yeah, and I think, let us know in the comments what you think about this.
Here we are on a Friday morning. Real estate expert John Brodeen is in the studio. How are you, man? It's been 2 long days.
I know. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. You got plans for the weekend?
I'm probably going to be working more on my house. We got a
that's right.
friend in town too, so I'm sure we'll get dinner with them or something. But working on the house a lot. I got all that junk out of my basement. I need to go through it, figure out what I'm keeping.
That's a hard thing to do.
I have to put it in the storage totes and stuff. And,
this past summer, I got one of those big, huge roll-off dumpsters because 17 years of accumulated stuff in my garage and my basement. And I'm one of those guys. It's so hard for me to throw anything away, especially when it's brand new, but it's 10 years old.
I know.
I'm throwing away sheets of plywood. And then, of course, after you do that, three days after they come and take the roll-off away, after it'd been there for a month, then you realize, gosh, I need a sheet of plywood now. But
I have the same problem. But at the same time, it feels kind of good to get after this because it's kind of been hanging over my head for a while, and I know I need to do it at some point. So it'll be good to get it taken care of and get the basement spruced up and livable again.
Right. And it's not like your family's getting any smaller, so you need a little more room. Yeah. You have talked about Dave Ramsey numerous times on these podcasts. Now, you hear the goods and the bads, and some people think he's awesome, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Some people don't, but is the Dave Ramsey method outdated for buying a home now?
Yeah, and I think let us know in the comments what you think about this. I think a lot of it has to do with where you live and how affordable homes are. So let's talk about what the Dave Ramsey method is. If you follow it by the book, exactly what Dave suggests is the best option.
Okay.
So if you're going to buy a house, first you are going to pay off all of your debt. You're going to save up an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. You're going to save up enough for a 20% down payment and closing costs. So you're probably going to need to save up about 23%. And you're not going to touch your emergency fund for this. So you're going to save this up once you've got your emergency fund fully funded. Now you're ready to buy a house, according to Dave Ramsey. When you buy a house, his strong recommendation is putting 20% down. He's softened on that a little bit where now he says, if you have to, you can put 10% down, but we're going to do 20% for this because that's what he really strongly recommends.
Okay.
He says only use a 15-year loan. Don't buy a house with a 30-year loan. And he says make sure that payment is less than 25% of your monthly household income, or at or below 25% of your monthly household income. So let's just see what this looks like and see how realistic this is. And it's, again, going to depend on your area, because if you're living in, San Diego, this is going to sound practically impossible.
Right.
Unless you have a pretty high income. But let's just say median income's close to 80 grand in America or whatever for household income. So let's say an example of $80,000 in household income per year, which is $6,666 a month in income. If you keep your payment at less than 25% or less of your monthly household income, you're looking at being able to purchase only a $180,000 house. And that's mainly because that 15-year loan makes your payment quite a bit higher.
Okay.
So even here, it's kind of tough to find anything nice for 180 grand. Depends how many kids you have. Plenty of options available if you're willing to look at like a townhome. Depends how many bedrooms you need. If you're young couple, no kids yet, you could maybe pull this off in Grand Forks. But if you've got 3 kids, this is going to be kind of tough in Grand Forks.
Yeah.
So 180 grand is our budget for what we can spend on a house. And you've got $17,000 saved up in your emergency fund. That would be considering maybe your living expenses are 85% of your household income, and you're saving let's say you're saving 15%, and your 15% and your monthly spend is about 85% of your household income. So we're going to have saved up $36,000 for the down payment, and we're going to have saved up $5,400 for closing costs. So you need to save up about $58,400, according to Dave Ramsey, before you're ready to buy a house, on top of paying off any of your existing debts, student loans, car payments, credit card debt, whatever. Okay. So how long would it take for you to save up that much money, right? Because that's a pretty important question. So after you're done paying off all of your debt, it would take almost 5 years if you were saving 15% of your income, which would be $1,000 a month.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So that's probably pretty realistic of what you could save up. You could probably do a little bit better if you really made some sacrifices. But
yeah, if you had 4 roommates and ate ramen every meal.
Yeah, exactly. So another big question is it realistic to be able to find a house for $180,000? If you're looking at maybe the small towns that surround Grand Forks, very realistic. In Grand Forks,
tougher.
If you're willing to look at pretty much any neighborhood in town, you could probably do it.
Yep.
If you have a certain like school district or certain neighborhood you want to be in, it's going to be tougher. And depends on how much space you need as well, like what your family situation is like. So big difference of if you have kids or not, right? How doable this is. Now, does a 15-year mortgage make the payment too high for most people, especially if you live in an expensive area? That's going to be, that's going to tip either way. So
that's a tough one there. Yeah,
I'd like to hear in the comments, where people live and is this possible for them? And it's kind of, the median sale price nationwide is 400-some thousand. So
right,
180,000 if the median in a certain area is 420,000. $180,000 house is going to be like a shack that you probably wouldn't want to live in. Right.
Now, when you bought, is this your first house that you're in now?
Yep. I bought it in 2017.
When you bought your first house, could you follow all of this? Or you?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know a lot of people. Maybe older established people that have been in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not just saying young people don't have money, but you know what I mean? It'd be tough to do all this.
So I bought my house in 2017.
Okay.
I did refinance it to a 15-year loan in 2020, and now I fit that criteria.
Now you do, right?
Now I do. But at the time that I bought it, my wife was in grad school too.
Yeah. And to get rid of all your debt, to save up all that money, I just think it would be very hard at a younger age, especially if you're looking at your first house.
Yeah. I don't think I had that much money saved up. I think I was debt free at the time. I may have had a car payment, which I don't anymore. But yeah, it's
sure.
Like, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, and I think I was when I bought that house, I was probably 23 years old, maybe.
Okay. Still pretty young.
Yeah. 24 maybe, something like that. I can't remember. But so some major questions that people are going to ask is it better to wait 5 years? So here's an alternative scenario. If you were to save up a $5,000 emergency fund, far less than $17,000, and if you were to put 5% down and you were going to go with a 30-year loan, your payment would still be less than 25% of your income. You'd still be able to buy that $180,000 house. You're putting $5,000 down instead of 20% down. You're going to have mortgage insurance. So your payment, you're going to have that included in your payment, but with a 30-year loan, you're still beneath that 25%, which 25% is pretty conservative. I've heard experts say all the way up to like 33%. Some of them say 30%. It really depends where you live.
Right, sure. It varies so much around the country,
If your income isn't super high, if you're in that median income range and you live in an expensive area, you're kind of out of luck with keeping it under 25%, in my opinion.
Right.
So what would happen if you did that route instead? So it would take you about 1 year and 8 months to save up enough for a $5,000 emergency fund, 5% down. So you're saving like 3 years and 4 months, right? You're buying 3 years and 4 months earlier than you would if you stuck with the Dave Ramsey plan.
Okay.
If the market went up by 2% per year, which is pretty modest appreciation, you would have gained $18,500 in equity over those 3 years and 4 months, because your market appreciation, your home would have gone up by $12,200 in appreciation at 2% per year. That's using compounded appreciation. Of course, that's how it works in the real world.
Yep.
And then you would have paid off $6,300 of the loan in those 3 years and 4 months. So you would have $18,500 in equity, in more equity than what you started with had you bought 3 years and 4 months earlier.
Okay.
So Dave's plan, my opinion on this, Dave's plan is much more conservative. If you're at a higher income, it's going to be easier to pull it off. You are going to be much safer going with this plan, because if the market went sideways or went down or whatever, having less equity in your home means you have less of a safety net. If you only have 5% equity and the market goes down 5%, you're going to lose money if you had to sell that house, because you're going to have the cost associated with selling it. Right?
And you talk about an emergency fund. Well, if you have an emergency during that time, there goes your emergency fund, and now you're back to ground zero again.
Exactly. Your emergencies are going to be bigger when you own a home compared to renting.
Absolutely.
That's just the nature of owning a home. So you do need to be in a better financial position to be ready for home ownership. I'm not a huge fan of people buying homes with like zero money out of pocket and not having savings.
Right.
I think you should have some savings, and I think you should put some money down.
Sure.
The money that you put down is kind of like a cushion against the home going backwards in value, so you could still get out of it and either break even or maybe even get some of your money back. Right.
Yeah.
If you have zero equity or negative equity, it takes nothing for you to be in kind of a bad spot where you have to write a big check to get out of it.
Right. And if you do have an emergency, it's hard to write a big check if there's nothing to write the big check with. But this all seems so scary.
Yeah.
It seems frightening, but it's really not.
It's really not. There's no reason to be afraid of this. And I think the right answer, depending on if you're in more of an average situation, if you're in a high income situation and you're in a cheap area, heck yeah, go for Dave Ramsey's approach.
Right.
It's, you be frugal, save up that money fast. You don't want to wait too long.
Right.
Because waiting too long and renting you're missing out on a lot of money. Like in this case, you're missing out on $18,500.
Sure. And if you can't do it the Dave Ramsey way, that doesn't mean it's not going to work for you either, because I didn't do it that way. And if things worked out, but that's something to think about.
Yep. And there's so many things I love about Dave Ramsey's approach and that I follow with my personal finances. Some of the things, like he'll, just even if it's not by the dollars and cents and numbers, the very most optimal way to do it, the peace of mind you get from having a secure financial situation and living below your means and being financially responsible is worth sacrificing not having as nice a thing.
Sure.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about on Wednesday, my job's, my career can be up and down. And so if I have things pretty secure on my personal finances side of things, where I'm living below my means and I'm being responsible and I have the cushion in place and stuff.
Way less worries in life.
Sweat a lot less and sleep a lot better if things aren't going perfectly.
Sure. And it's not just you, John Brodeen. It's Mrs. John Brodeen and child.
Yep, exactly.
So, man, I tell you what, every time you guys come in here, I do learn something.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I hear you say, boy, it's hard to keep thinking of new things to talk about every week, but it seems like you guys always do.
Yeah.
And every time you do, I'm like, wow, I never really thought about that.
Yeah, it's interesting things to discuss. I love talking about it, even though it's my career.
Tell.
It's
sure.
Personal finance especially is something that I've dove into a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Even from when I was pretty young, learning about rental properties, learning about personal finances, stuff you weren't taught in school, but helps you out a lot in the real world is always kind of been a subject I've liked. So.
Well, I tell you what, John, don't work too hard this weekend on your house. And if somebody wants to get a hold of realty expert John Brodeen, how do they do that?
Yeah, 701-213-5428. Go ahead and comment on this video and let me know what you think about what we discussed today and what you think the best approach is. Is Dave Ramsey right? Is Dave Ramsey dead wrong? Is it somewhere in the middle? Check it out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It'll be everywhere. So. Yeah.
All right. You have a great weekend, man.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. There you go. That's your Berkshire Hathaway bi-weekly podcast. Real estate expert John Brodeen in the studio today, wishing everybody a wonderful weekend. We'll be back with another podcast on Wednesday, 10 a.m.